How are you? Is the camera a bit wonky? Hi everyone, how are you? Today I'm going to do a book review on 0 to 1. I'm sorry if there's any background noise. I'm at the South Bank Centre and I've just tried to find a quiet corner underneath this bridge, but there's a high likelihood some people will walk through. So 0 to 1 is a book about venture capital and how to grow your business, your tech startup. And it goes into a hell of a lot of detail in a whole ton of different areas. However, I just picked up a few key points from the book that I think would really interesting and give you an incentive to go and read it. So the first thing which I thought was really good was he talks about Jonathan Glaser's book Outliers, and effectively says that it's that it's kind of crap, and to a degree I completely agree with him. I think if you go along in life believing that the fortunes of your life are completely as a result of luck, then there's just really no point of trying every day. And he goes into explicit detail about the kind of characteristics and the things you can do to give yourself a better chance of being successful. Another key point in the book is this idea that most startup ideas over the last few years have been effectively globalization, so the idea of taking what already exists as an idea and blowing it up worldwide, and that compared to the 90s when people were really excited about being in the tech industry, that most innovation is kind of slumped and the big ambitious ideas haven't really been coming along in the same way they were in the early 90s. Another thing he talks about is that monopolies and companies who are extremely successful, the reason they tend to be in that position is because they've escaped competition, and that's why big companies such as Google and Apple can offer their employees perks and benefits, is because they effectively have monopolised an area and therefore have an abundance of cash to spend on employee satisfaction, which obviously as a tech startup you're not going to have that same overflow of cash to kind of offer your employees benefits like that, which is why the cultures of these big companies are so much greater than other places, and as a budding startup you really should just concentrate on building your product and getting together effectively a group of, like a cult-like following of people who are set on achieving a single mission. Another point I really liked was this idea of network effects. So if you're a tech startup and you're looking at your product benefits, one of the things you can do is to look at, does your product get better with the amount of people that interact with the website? If you think about a lot of the platforms we use today, i.e. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all of these so-called unicorns, the reason that they are good products is because they've got a large user base, and from the day dot of that company being founded, it was virtually useless unless there was people on it. But obviously the more people you get on it, there's an exponential value being offered. Just to kind of put that into context, compare that to some kind of productivity tools, for example something like Trello. Obviously if you've got people on there from your office or whatever, it kind of helps, but it's not got the same kind of, the more people that are on it the better it gets. Slack, for example, is another thing where probably I wouldn't say it necessarily gets better the more people are on it, but I don't know. I'd love to get your opinion on that. And then the last thing was he goes into detail about what venture capitalists look for in a company, and also talks about how of a venture capital firm's portfolio, it's normally only one or two companies that are responsible for the overwhelming success of that portfolio, and how it's extremely difficult for venture capitalists to find unicorns, and when they do, they that accounts for virtually their whole success. So it's not a exact science by any means, but he goes in depth about the kind of things that you can do to give your product the best chance. So yeah, that's a few key points I found really interesting about the book. I'd love to get your thoughts. Compared to another book that I've just started reading, which is The Hard Things About Hard Things, I would rate 0 to 1 over that any time. I think it's a hell of a lot more concise. Every single page had so many valid takeaways that I couldn't stop writing down notes. I virtually rewrote the book, it was that good. So yeah, check it out. I'd love to get your thoughts. Hit me up if there's any other questions, and hopefully I'll do another review soon. Cheers guys.